I grew up in England, a land still faithful to the legacy of Christianity spread by the Roman Empire, and the continuation of that faith as the basis of its laws and customs. At school, every morning, we gathered in the school hall for an event known as Assembly, where we would sing a hymn such as Hills of the North Rejoice and then recite the Lord's Prayer. It was basically a church service followed by the school head making some announcements before we separated and made our way to the classrooms. This scene came into my head recently while thinking about the expression, as above, so below. The words of the Lord's Prayer came back to me, specifically the line, on earth as it is in heaven. Do you see the connection? Earth is the below and heaven the above. Was this Jesus' way of teaching us the ancient mystery of the phrase? I think so. Let me delve further into this ancient saying and its relevance to the words of Jesus. Few phrases in the history of human thought have carried as much weight, sparked as much debate, or influenced as many minds as the enigmatic maxim, as above, so below. These four simple words, echoing across millennia, encapsulate one of the most profound philosophical and mystical concepts ever articulated. They represent the cornerstone of Hermetic philosophy, a tradition that claims to preserve the most ancient wisdom of humanity, transmitted through the legendary figure of Hermes Trismegistus and immortalized in the mysterious text known as the Emerald Tablet. The discovery of this phrase in ancient documents represents far more than mere archaeological curiosity. It marks the recovery of a world-view that sees the universe as a unified, interconnected whole, where the patterns of the celestial spheres mirror those of earthly existence and where the microcosm of human experience reflects the macrocosm of cosmic reality. This principle, known as the doctrine of correspondence, has shaped not only esoteric traditions, but also influenced the development of science, philosophy, psychology, and art throughout history. The journey to understand as above, so below requires us to traverse the labyrinthine paths of ancient wisdom traditions, to examine manuscripts that have survived the ravages of time, conquest, and suppression, and to piece together a puzzle whose origins stretch back to the dawn of recorded history. It demands that we consider not only what these ancient texts say, but how they came to be discovered, preserved, and transmitted across cultures and centuries. The historical context of ancient Hermetic texts. The phrase, as above, so below, emerges from a rich tapestry of ancient philosophical and religious traditions that flourished in the Mediterranean world during the Hellenistic period. This era, roughly spanning from the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC to the rise of Christianity in the early centuries AD, witnessed an unprecedented synthesis of Greek philosophical thought, Egyptian religious wisdom, Persian mysticism, and Hebrew theological concepts. Ancient Egypt in particular served as a crucial crucible for the development of what would later be called Hermetic philosophy. The Egyptians had long held sophisticated beliefs about the correspondence between earthly and celestial realms, as evidenced in their elaborate funerary texts, astronomical observations, and religious practices. The Pyramid texts, dating back to the Old Kingdom circa 2686 to 2181 BC, already contained references to the soul's journey through celestial spheres and the correspondence between the individual and cosmic order. During the Ptolemaic period, 323 BC to 30 BC, when Greek culture merged with Egyptian traditions under the rule of Alexander's successors, a remarkable intellectual connection occurred. Alexandria became the center of learning for the ancient world, housing the great library of Alexandria and attracting scholars, philosophers, and mystics from across the known world. It was in this cosmopolitan environment that the figure of Hermes Trismegistus emerged, representing a synthesis of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. The attribution of various texts to Hermes Trismegistus reflects a common practice in the ancient world, where important teachings were often credited to legendary figures to lend them authority and gravitas. However, the relationship between Hermetic philosophy and the scientific revolution was not uniformly positive. As the scientific method matured and became more rigorous, many Hermetic assumptions were gradually abandoned as unverifiable or inconsistent with empirical evidence. The anthropocentric aspects of correspondence theory, which suggested that human concerns were reflected in cosmic processes, proved incompatible with the emerging mechanistic worldview. The tension between Hermetic and mechanistic approaches came to a head in the debates over astrology during the 17th century. While early scientists like Kepler maintained belief in astrological influences as expressions of cosmic correspondence, later figures like Newton became increasingly skeptical of astrological claims, even while retaining interest in other aspects of Hermetic philosophy. Influence on literature and arts. William Shakespeare's works contain numerous references to Hermetic principles, reflecting the widespread Renaissance interest in correspondence theory. His famous lines from Hamlet, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy," express the Hermetic belief in hidden correspondences between visible and invisible realms. The complex symbolic structures of plays like The Tempest and A Midsummer Night's Dream embody Hermetic principles of correspondence between natural, human, and spiritual domains. John Milton's Paradise Lost can be read as an extended meditation on the relationship between celestial and terrestrial realms, with the fall of Satan representing the disruption of cosmic correspondence and the redemption of humanity offering the possibility of restored harmony. Milton's detailed descriptions of celestial hierarchies and their earthly reflections draw heavily upon Hermetic and Neoplatonic sources. The Romantic movement of the late 18th and early 19th centuries showed particular affinity for Hermetic principles of correspondence. Poets such as William Blake, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Percy Bysshe Shelley found in As Above, So Below a framework for understanding the relationship between imagination and reality, inner vision and outer nature. Blake's prophetic books present elaborate mythological systems based explicitly upon Hermetic principles. His famous lines, "To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower," directly express the Hermetic insight that macrocosmic realities can be perceived within microcosmic phenomena. Blake's visual art similarly embodies correspondence principles through his use of symbolic imagery that operates simultaneously on multiple levels of meaning. Contemporary esoteric and spiritual movements. The principle of "as above, so below" continues to play a central role in contemporary esoteric and spiritual movements, demonstrating the enduring appeal and relevance of this ancient insight. Modern practitioners have adapted Hermetic principles to address contemporary concerns while maintaining connection to traditional wisdom. The New Age movement that emerged in the latter half of the 20th century drew extensively upon Hermetic principles, often interpreting "as above, so below" in psychological and therapeutic terms. New Age authors and teachers have applied correspondence theory to areas ranging from crystal healing and astrology to meditation and consciousness expansion. Modern magical traditions, including various forms of neo-paganism, Wicca, and ceremonial magic, have maintained active engagement with Hermetic principles. Organizations such as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and its various offshoots have preserved and developed traditional Hermetic practices while adapting them to contemporary contexts. The end. However you translate it or where you believe its origins lie, there is no doubt that this concept was understood by Jesus and included in his words to the faithful. I hope you found this video interesting, and you may like to see some of my shorter videos. God be with you.